There is a kind of work that almost no one talks about, not because it is rare or unimportant, but because it is quiet, unglamorous, and often invisible to everyone except the person doing it. And yet, despite its lack of recognition, it is the very thing that separates those who slowly transform their lives from those who remain stuck in the same patterns year after year. This work does not show up on social media. It does not create immediate results. It does not give you instant validation or applause. And because of that, most people underestimate it. Or worse, they avoid it entirely. But this invisible work is where everything begins. It is the decision to sit down and focus when your mind is searching for distraction, when your phone is within reach, when your energy is low, and when there is no external pressure forcing you to do anything at all. It is the moment you choose to continue. Even though the progress you are making feels so small that it almost seems meaningless, even though the results are nowhere to be seen, and even though a part of you is questioning whether any of it will ever pay off. And perhaps most importantly, it is the ability to repeat these actions, not once or twice, but consistently, over days, weeks, months, and sometimes even years, without needing constant reassurance that you are on the right path. Because the truth is, most meaningful progress happens in silence. It happens in the early mornings when no one is watching. It happens in the late nights when it would be easier to stop. It happens in the ordinary moments that feel too small to matter, but that quietly accumulate into something powerful over time. And this is where the misunderstanding begins. We are often taught to focus on results, to measure success by what is visible, to judge progress by what we can immediately see and feel. But the problem with that approach is that it ignores the process. And the process is where the real change happens. If you only focus on results, you will often feel discouraged because results take time. They are delayed. They do not appear instantly. But if you learn to focus on the process, something shifts. You begin to value the act of showing up. You begin to appreciate the effort itself. You begin to understand that every small action is contributing to something larger, even if you cannot see it yet. And that understanding changes everything. Because when you stop needing immediate results, you become more consistent. And when you become more consistent, results eventually follow. There is also something deeper happening beneath the surface during this invisible work. You are not just completing tasks. You are not just checking boxes. You are becoming someone new. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are reinforcing a new identity. Every time you choose action over delay, you are strengthening a new habit. Every time you continue despite difficulty, you are building resilience. And these changes are not temporary. They reshape the way you think. They influence the way you respond to challenges. They determine how you handle setbacks, pressure, and uncertainty. In other words, they change who you are. And once your identity changes, your behavior follows naturally. This is why some people seem to operate differently. It's not that they never feel tired. It's not that they are always motivated. It's that they have trained themselves, through repeated action, to show up regardless of how they feel. They have built systems. They have built habits. They have built an identity that supports their goals. And all of that started with invisible work. Work that no one saw. Work that no one praised. Work that often felt slow and unrewarding. But work that mattered. Let's talk about something that often interrupts this process. Doubt. Doubt tends to appear when progress is unclear, when results are delayed, when effort does not seem to match outcomes. And in those moments, it becomes very easy to question everything, to wonder if you are on the wrong path, to wonder if you are wasting your time, to wonder if you should stop and try something else. And while those thoughts are natural, they can also be dangerous if they lead you to quit too early. Because what you cannot see in those moments is how close you might actually be. Progress often follows a pattern that is not linear. It is slow at first, sometimes almost invisible. And then, at a certain point, it accelerates. But that acceleration only happens because of everything that came before it. Every small action, every repeated effort, every moment of invisible work. If you remove those early steps, the later results never happen. This is why patience is so important. Not passive patience, where you simply wait and hope for things to change, but active patience, where you continue to act, continue to improve, and continue to move forward, even when you do not see immediate results. Because patience allows the process to work. And without patience, consistency breaks. And without consistency, progress stops. There is also another challenge that comes with invisible work, and that is the temptation of comfort. Comfort is always available. It is always easier to stop. It is always easier to delay. It is always easier to choose what feels good in the moment rather than what is good in the long term. And because of that, comfort becomes a default. But the problem with choosing comfort repeatedly is that it keeps you in the same place. Growth requires effort. Growth requires change. Growth requires discomfort. Not extreme discomfort. Not suffering. But the willingness to do things that are not always easy. And when you avoid that, you also avoid growth. So the question becomes, how do you continue when it would be easier to stop? The answer is not motivation. Motivation is temporary. It comes and goes. If you rely on motivation, your actions will always be inconsistent. Instead, what you need is structure. Clear actions. Simple routines. Defined expectations. When you remove the need to constantly decide what to do, it becomes easier to act. You don't wake up and ask yourself if you feel like it. You wake up and follow the plan. And over time, this reduces resistance. Because action becomes automatic. And when action becomes automatic, consistency becomes easier. Before we close, I want you to think about something important. Right now, there is a version of your life that you want to reach. A version where you are more disciplined, more confident, more capable. And the distance between where you are now and that version of yourself is not defined by one big moment. It is defined by daily actions. Small, repeated, often invisible actions. So instead of asking yourself, when will things change? Ask yourself, what can I do today that moves me forward? And then do that. Not perfectly, not dramatically, just consistently. Because in the end, it is not the visible work that changes your life. It is the invisible work that you do when no one is watching, when no one is praising you, and when no one is reminding you to continue. That is the work that builds discipline. That is the work that builds identity. That is the work that changes everything. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.